Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our ISWP's wheelchair training webinar by experts. Today, we have a great lineup of presenters from Simple Stuff Works, UK, Mavrix Enterprises, UK, Diversibility Development Organization, Canada, and Timion from South Africa. My colleagues will be presenting on the topic, Going Against Gravity. So I'll hand it over to Sarah Clayton. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's an absolute pleasure to be back with you again. We're going to start the presentation in a moment, but I just wanted to make you aware. On the 13th of October this year, I presented on the patterns of body shape distortion, looking at theory to assessment and then assessment to intervention. So that presentation, the slides and the information is all available. So if at the beginning of this presentation you're looking for a little bit more, then that's where you will find it. But for now, what we wanted to do, let me just share my screen. Can I just check that everybody can see that? Hopefully.
Yes.
Fantastic. So we were joking before that we have a cast of thousands today for you, but it's not quite thousands. There's the 6 of us today representing a really exciting partnership that covers the UK, Canada and South Africa. And it's a partnership that's been in development for a number of years now, and we wanted to update everybody as to where we had got to. So my background, as I said, on the 13th of October, I gave a presentation that goes into this in far more detail. But what we wanted to do was just give you a little bit of background for those of you that weren't able to join that presentation. So I've worked since 1998 with people with complex disability, and I'm interested primarily in the lying posture. And the reason for that is because, and I wrote this quite some time ago, but it struck me that the way we lie is the way that we sit. It becomes the way that we sit. And then the way that we sit often dictates what we can do, how we feel, what we can enjoy, and the extent to which we can participate. And it struck me, and it strikes me every day that I'm working with fabulous practitioners all over the place, that each of us has like a real drive, something that really kind of floats our boat when we are working. And it might be that communication is your thing, or employment, or inclusion, or education. So whatever it is, lying probably, if you're working with people with complex disability, lying probably has a part to play in how successful you are likely to be. So I want to just highlight that with a little story. This young man is a guy I know very, very well. His name is James, and there are 10 years in between these 2 photographs. So in the first photograph, James is 9 years old, and in the second, he's 19. And when I met James when he was 19, so I met him in, at the stage in the second photograph. And the reason that I met James is because he was being, there was discussion about his swallow, an unsafe swallow, and discussion about having a gastrostomy and about restricting his diet. There were also discussions with regards to his mobility, because he was able, when he was younger, to complete a standing transfer. And that was becoming more and more risky. And he was also very, very uncomfortable. So what I wanted to share with you is like a fast forward really of 10 years, because everything that's happening to James in the second picture, there are big clues that that's the way that he's heading in the first picture. And so if you take a moment to look at his head turn, so his head tending to turn to his left. And if we think about the thousands of hours that are spent in bed, then we're kind of reinforcing that night after night after night. If you look at his left arm tucked underneath his body, which makes it difficult in terms of function during the day, His right arm is, if you imagine the main part of his body sinking into his mattress, the right arm, sorry, ends up slightly behind him, which is very difficult for the shoulder. It's difficult for him to bring his arm in when he's in his wheelchair. You look at the lordosis, you look at the leg position, everything is here. And James was letting us know at 9 some of the things that he might find challenging in the future. So the pattern of distortion that James is following is called windsweeping. And it's a very, very common pattern of distortion. And I talked about it in detail on the 13th. But in essence, it happens in all unsupported lying positions. And what we have, if somebody is windswept left, we tend to see clockwise chest rotation. The chest will follow the legs and the pelvis will rotate in the opposite direction. The more independent movement an individual has, the more complex those patterns of distortion become. But essentially, this is kind of a real basic 101 of body shape distortion and the lying posture, is to really understand windsweeping. And the other thing to note is that that windsweeping is a whole body phenomenon. So it's not just something that happens from the waist down. It also involves the trunk, it involves the chest. So all of our function, our biological functions, our digestion, our breathing, all of those things can be impacted by very long periods of time, spent in these unsupported, potentially destructive positions. Each of these individuals is windswept to their right. So all of them, their legs will tend to fall or be drawn to their right. Their pelvis will go in the opposite direction and their chest is rotating anti-clockwise. And so what you can see here over a number of years for these 4 different individuals is a pattern of distortion that develops over time. And the easiest time to intervene is the earliest time that you can possibly intervene. So wherever possible, we need to be protecting symmetry. And if protection of symmetry is not possible, we need to be thinking about intervention that is able to correct symmetry, if that's at all possible. So the earlier we intervene, the better. But this is simply a pattern that if we understand it and recognize it, then it opens the door to intervention. So as I said, I've worked... Oh, so like a Doctor Who moment. So I've worked for 25 years in the UK in a well-resourced country within a health service that whilst it has its difficulties is generally well-resourced. And I have learned over that time that the provision of equipment is not the only element that makes for successful use of supported lying. So the 5 key areas that I feel are really important within this ecosystem that allows for support, for sustainable provision, I think are these. So if we start here in this corner, we're looking at, first of all, consistent identification of need. So who are we thinking about? Where are they? And when are we thinking about them? That may change over time. So it may be that it depends on your setting. It depends on the people that you're working with. There are so many individuals who get themselves stuck in destructive lying positions that the who is just huge. So, for example, we might be working with very young children in a school, and then the next day we may well be working with people in a care facility who are living with late stage dementia. So there is a huge breadth of people. we need to think very carefully about the outcome measures that we will be using. So those outcome measures as well may change for different people. So we might be thinking about, for young children, about positioning for therapy. And then for older people, we might be thinking very much about positioning for comfort. So the outcome measures we use may change, but it's really important that everybody buys in to the why are we doing this. The next thing we need to think about is the training of clinicians, of self-advocates, of the people themselves, if that's possible, of those providing care, support workers, teachers, everybody that may lay their hands on an individual to help them to get into a different position, or is able to identify and help us understand the different positions that that person uses during the day. And only then, when we've identified the person, we know why we are thinking about supported lying, we've trained everybody involved, so we have their buy-in, only then really does the equipment start to become something we'll think about. But that equipment needs to be, we have to have provision that is effective and sustainable. And finally, we need to think about the review processes that we're going to use to identify whether what we intended to do is what we're actually doing. Is the equipment working? Are the positioning strategies working? If so, fabulous, we carry on. And if not, then we need to revisit. So in 2008, we introduced Simple Stuff Works to the UK healthcare market. And the reason I wanted to give a bit of background is that it's important to recognise that the work that we've been doing as this collective, as this partnership, is based on many years of a tried and tested product. So 2008, we introduced Simple Stuff Works to the UK, but always we have worked with one arm of our organisation is around equipment provision, and the other arm is looking at training and support for those who are actually using the equipment. So in 2010, we were highly commended for an Accolade Award, which is a national award in the UK for the most effective practice in workforce development. And that was because we were training family carers alongside their therapists in the same room at the same time. And that was recognised as innovative practice. And then in 2015, the Simple Stuff Works positioning system won the best established product in the British healthcare market. And that was across all sectors. And that was through the British Healthcare Trades Association. So as a product, we know, and we have years of data to show that it's clinically effective. It's really important that it's silent because we're using it at night. It's highly portable, it's simple to use, it's amenable to remote assessment and support, which is essential when we're thinking about the way that we support people that are often hundreds and hundreds of miles away from us. And clinically, it offers both derotation and decompression. So there is no compromise with regards to the product. But when we were thinking about the product, and we were regularly being asked for support from people that were based in low and middle income countries, the UK market made that very, very difficult for us. So as an organisation, we are highly regulated. Manufacture is incredibly expensive. We use high-end raw materials. We have a very high cost of sales here in the UK. And all of those together meant that export of the specific UK works was cost prohibitive. So that led to some discussions about how we could do this, because as an organisation, we are absolutely passionate about getting supported lying to as many people as possible, you know, as effectively as possible. So now I'd like to hand over to Sarah Frost, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the partnership that we've been developing for some time. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. So, yes, what this brings us to, as Sarah was saying, is our collaboration, Simple Stuff Works by DDO. And it's a collaboration between 3 organisations. Sarah Clayton, who has just been speaking from Simple Stuff Works, Sharmini Constantinescu from the Diversibility Development Organisation, DDO, and myself, Sarah Frost from Mavrix Innovations. And we all knew that needs in lower and middle income countries are not being fully recognised. And we wanted to come together to pool our collective experience of Simple Stuff Works tried and tested product, as Sarah's just been talking about, DDO's experience in manufacturing and quality control for assistive products in limited resource settings, and my experience of implementing service provision in limited resource settings. And together our collaboration became Simple Stuff Works by DDO. However, as Sarah said, success of this is not just a product supply chain issue, it's about an ecosystem. And that ecosystem is all about people, not least the individuals and families who need and benefit from effective support in lying. And a critical part of that ecosystem is working in partnership to bring a context-specific service provision solution. So Sarah, if we can go to the next slide. The next stage was to test and pilot our proposed solution with a partner. And our partner that we were looking for needed experience at 2 levels, both as a service provider, working closely with families and caregivers, and also as a product supplier. And this led us to Timion. And as we said before, this is about a holistic approach. And we are committed to putting in place what is needed in order for our partnerships, and in this case, working with Timion, to feel confident about the process in order for this whole process to be successful. So we started with remote training supports, giving the theory behind what we do, the product and what we do. And then that moved on to further remote training, applying that theory and integrating the lying support once that theory was well understood. And as Timion's confidence grew, they started to take the lead and doing their assessments and implementing using the equipment. And we were then taking a supporting role remotely. And that has continued and grown to a whole cascade led by Timion. And I'd like to now introduce and hand over to Hannah, who's going to share their experience.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, my name is Hannah Woods. I will be sharing our experience of Simple Stuff Works with DDO with also my colleagues Kayla and Karlien. I'm a physiotherapist from the UK, but I've been here in South Africa for 12 years with Timion. So yeah, this is our experience of the pilot that we did. So Timion was founded in 2006 by Daniel and Annika Meyer. They were motivated to really try and bridge the gap of equipment provision to families that have less financial resources. Equipment provision has been historically very difficult in South Africa. So we design, manufacture and issue different types of disability equipment to children and families all over South Africa, but we are based in the Eastern Cape and Jeffreys Bay. And yeah, a lot of our work is around this area as well. So we have a holistic approach. We have therapists, myself and the occupational therapists you'll meet now, who work with the children, with the families and the caregivers for empowerment, for uplifting, for encouragement and training, as well as having our products that we have, the standing frames, the posture chairs, walking devices that we manufacture. So it really was a great hand-in-hand approach. As the Sarahs have shared, it's not just about the equipment, but also about the ability and the importance of training and sharing and cascading this information to caregivers. So it's been a really great partnership as our approaches were so similar. So you can see the slide here. This is Elena's Love Daycare. We have a daycare which is partnered under the umbrella of Timion. We realized that the need for facilities for children with severe disabilities, it needs to be met. So Timion decided, okay, let's open a daycare. So at the moment we have 6 children that you can see who are part of our daycare. And all of these children have been part of this pilot with the Simple Stuff Works by DDO products. So it's been a really great experience to be able to do this pilot in a controlled environment where we're able to really work closely with the caregivers, with the parents, to do the monitoring, to do the evaluation, with the online support that we've had from the UK, which has been really a great experience. So we started this pilot in September this year, so it's actually only very recent. And then we were actually able to then implement this to the staff and the daycare ladies, the teachers, and also the parents. We can move to the next slide. So how we did it. First of all, we started with the staff at the daycare center. First step was we had training with Sarah and Sarah, first of all, empowering us, and then we were able to share this information. So we did it in 2 sessions. So there was a theory session and a practical session. And we found straight away that the staff was so motivated to implement the equipment immediately. We had actually planned to only start it the following week, but they said, no, we want to get started straight away. And it was great because the staff could notice the differences in the children, their level of comfort, their level of just engagement and participation. So we will share a bit more about that in a little bit. So the next slide, please. So a bit of background for the case studies. This is over a 2-month period. The case studies are on 2 of our older children at the daycare. They're both teenagers, both with a diagnosis of cerebral palsy, both GMFCS level 5, and they living just outside of township in Uitenhage in South Africa. Both of these families are from a lower socioeconomic background and have limited access to resources and quality healthcare. They're part of Elena's Love Daycare, like I shared before. We found some statistics that show it was Stellenbosch University, which is one of the leading universities in South Africa, in 2022, that 10 out of 1,000 babies in South Africa have cerebral palsy, and the global statistic is 2 out of 1,000. So you can see the need for this kind of intervention is very great. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Karlien now, who's going to share some of the information with one of the case studies.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm Karlien from Linde. I'm an occupational therapist working at Timion part-time. I have 8 years experience in working with severely disabled children in low-income settings in South Africa. So I would like to discuss this first case, and then I will hand over to my colleague, Kayla. So I would love to introduce to you Kayla. He doesn't speak or use any hand gestures, but his strength lies in the use of his eyes and his comprehension. He's a teenager, so it's also not too difficult to discern his mood. He's been living with CP for the past 16 years, and he's the oldest of 5 children, and his parents showed immense perseverance in raising him with a small income in a low-resource setting with many barriers most of his life. At home, he has a specialized wheelchair, but for comfort and family inclusion, they prefer to lay him on the couch in the living room. The size of his house does not accommodate large therapeutic equipment. His mom has been an employee of Elena's Love Daycare since 2019, which also introduced a new routine and purpose into his life. At the daycare, he mainly lies down and now, since September, he makes use of the Simple Stuff Works equipment. He has a posture chair where we have done our best to accommodate his deformities, making use of advanced seating principles. So on the next slide, you will see him lying down with any support. He has a limited ability to maintain anti-gravity head and trunk postures. Due to his age, growth spurts, and inconsistent 24-hour postural management, he has hip dislocations and contractures. He has spastic CP, which affects all his muscles. His lack of range of motion in his upper body impacts breathing, and a general lack of movement results in abnormal motility, even in his intestines. Therefore, he has a long history of constipation and also hospitalization due to pneumonia. So on the next slide, we will discuss his body shape distortions. If you use his sternum as a reference, it's evident that his chest has rotated in an anti-clockwise direction. He has a hip obliquity, which causes his legs to fall to his right. The aim of using this equipment was to attempt to support and protect his posture and relieve the current strain that he experiences in his physiological functions. On the next slide, it's very obvious the impact that the equipment made on his body alignment. His chest is manually de-rotated and supported with firm laterals. The limited flexion range in his knees is supported by the horseshoe pillow, and the weight of his legs can now rest and not put more strain on his hips. On this specific day, we did not make use of the bedsheet to cover all the mesh and topper. The bedsheet offers a neat and practical finish. If you go to the next slide, we will see that this trial period of using the equipment has made a big impact on Tulu's quality of life. Staff reported that he has generally a more relaxed posture with more tolerance for sitting. Meal times cause less frustration for both Tulu and his mom now because he can open his mouth wider and his breathing has eased, according to her. More specific. On the next slide, we will look at feedback from his home routine, and from home, Mom shared that it's easier for her to get him dressed, which indicates a reduction of tone in his whole body. Mom says he also passes stools more easily, which indicates improved motility. In conclusion, we started to run out of ideas to create a base from which Tulu can engage in activities. It's been 5 years since he has started to attend the daycare and to have this focus on supine positioning alongside Simple Stuff Works and DDO with a tried and tested product has truly been a gain. I would like to hand over to Kayla now to discuss the next child.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kayla Randall, and I'm an occupational therapist. I have been here at Timion for the past year. So I would like to introduce to you Michael. He is a 16-year-old teenager and makes use of facial expressions and sounds as his form of communication. He has great family support and lives with his aunt, who has former experience of working at a rehabilitation center. His parents and siblings also live in the township. He is the oldest of the siblings and he sees them often, but his aunt is observed as his main caregiver. He makes use of a government chair at home and a Timion posture chair at the daycare. If we go to the next slide, I will then show you him in unsupported lying. Michael is diagnosed with spastic cerebral palsy and is on level 5 of the GMFCS, which means he is fully dependent on others to change his positions. He has bilateral hip dislocations, which also need to be taken into consideration to find optimal comfort in different positions. He experiences pain and becomes distressed in prolonged sitting and unsupported lying. The majority of the time at the daycare, he lies down, but it has been challenging to find ways for him to be comfortable and relax. He sits for feeding and group activities and makes use of the chair as mentioned, which has been modified with advanced seating principles to ensure some level of comfort. If we look at the next slide, you can see that Manto has an anti-clockwise chest rotation and right pelvic obliquity, with his legs being windswept to his right. Our goals for Manto are to improve his pain management in different positions and for him to feel more relaxed. He struggles with activities of daily living, such as feeding, as it is difficult for him to open his mouth for feeding, as well as swallowing the food effectively. Then also to ease his breathing is also a goal. If we look at the next slide, you will see him in supported and unsupported. I won't go into too much detail, but just to highlight a few things. For him specifically, we were supported so well with Sarah during our online Zoom trainings. As you can see, the chest, because of the anti-clockwise chest rotation, we wanted to de-rotate the chest. But we soon realized that even a little bit of a de-rotation is still a big stretch for him. So this really showed us we had to go little by little for him and to go at his pace and not ours. It's not about symmetry right off the bat. It's about meeting the child where he's at and protecting the body from any detrimental effects gravity might have. And then if you go to the next slide. So this is the feedback that we received from the staff. They noticed that Manto is more relaxed and comfortable and has fewer signs of pain and distress. They noticed feeding has become easier as he opens his mouth wider and swallows efficiently. And then the feedback that we got from his aunt, if we go to the next slide, is that she has seen a difference in the stiffness of the hips since using Simple Stuff Works, and it has actually made it easier for her to change the nappy. She can see he is well supported and falls asleep in the equipment. He also raises his arms above the shoulders when sleeping. He is more comfortable, and the tone in his right arm is influenced as he can open up his arm and slightly move it. Next, I will be showing you the other kiddies that we also had a chance to use the equipment on. So these three kids that I'll show next, they do not have fixed deformities, but they do have tendencies that the body falls in. So this is Aza. She is 3 years old and presents with dystonic CP. She prefers prone for sensory feedback. And we had a nice discussion with Sarah as well. As I mentioned, we did many Zoom trainings, but long term, it's not the answer to keep her in prone, as we could already observe that her head shape was changing. And this also, we could see the effects of gravity the spine has on the whole body. So here in unsupported, you can see she has a tendency of abduction, and still the head is always moving to one side and the arms are in extreme positions. Whereas when she was supported, we could bring the hands more into midline, and also we used a weighted chest pillow, which just helped for that sensory feedback that she really enjoys, that she would usually get in prone. And even our approach for her was much different. I remember the first session we had for her, Karlien still had a chance to lie next to her because she also has poor vision. So she feels very unsafe and very insecure. So having someone actually lie next to her for a while, and then we started with the chest first to add that security, whereas with the other kids, we'll always start with the legs first. So the whole approach changes from child to child. And then if you look at the next slide, you will meet Shloki. He is 4 years old and he's diagnosed with dystonic CP. He's very active, very interactive. He is so aware of his environment. And then again, like I said, they do not have fixed deformities, but they have tendencies. So for him, his legs tend to go into windswept to his left. And if you really look closer, you'll see a bit of change there, or change starting to happen in the chest area. And then this is him then supported. And even with him, because he's so active and interactive, we added a wedge at the back of his head, just so that he can still be involved and look around where he needs to look. And as you can see, he's very excited. The arms are even going into that position and so. But yes, so that is Shloki. And then if we go to the next slide, this is Siba. He is 4 years old and diagnosed with athetoid CP and with low tone. So again, with him specifically, we kind of struggled in the beginning to see what his tendency is, but then we noticed that it's more to the right, that he goes windswept to the right, his right. And then this is him then placed in the equipment. And I would just like to mention again what Karlien said. The sheet isn't over. It's just so that we could practice and show how it needs to look. But with the sheet, it is also a lot more neat. And then next we have Ape. So he is 16 years old and diagnosed with spastic CP. So again, I would like to just highlight what Hannah said. The daycare is a controlled environment and a place where we really could use this at the daycare. Some of the kids could take it home and use it at home, but with him specifically, it would not be possible due to social factors that play a role. So here we can see he has anti-clockwise chest rotation and windswept to his right. And then you can see the massive difference it is from unsupported to supported. And then we also received feedback from the staff. So the staff made use of the equipment, as we said. And yeah, the feedback was that the equipment isn't difficult to implement as the steps are easy to follow. They feel that it is possible to do it individually without having to disturb someone else to help them to place the children in the Simple Stuff Works equipment. And the more they could practice placing them in the equipment, the easier, even the, I want to say in quotation marks, the more complicated child became. And then I'm going to just hand over to Hannah again, who will discuss the learning that Timion as an organization had from this experience.
Okay. Thank you so much.
So I think, yeah, the photos almost talk for themselves, from seeing the children unsupported to supported. I think it doesn't really need much more to say. I think we can see so well just the symmetry of the body and how supported they are in it. And yeah, I think this time for Timion has really been a great pilot. We've really enjoyed being able to be exposed to a new product as well. And it was really a successful pilot. All of the children that we've used this product with, we've been able to see benefits with. So that was really great. Sometimes, like what Kayla, or I think it was Karlien, was saying, with the children who we've known for a long time, who are becoming more and more deformed with the years and becoming teenagers, it can sometimes be disheartening when you keep trying, but yeah, with all our best efforts, we don't always find great solutions. But we've really found that for these children who, when sitting is starting to become a challenge, this lying positioning has really brought a totally new element to their experience. So I think the other great thing that we noticed was that it was a really easy buy-in from the staff at the daycare and the carers at home. We didn't need to persuade people that it was a good idea to use it. We didn't need to, manipulate. we literally just shared our experiences, shared a little bit of the theory behind it, but they could see straight away how much it impacted the children. Even in the home environment, the carers that do have the equipment at home have been faithfully using it, which is wonderful. I think we all know equipment is not always used consistently in the home environment, but this, we've really found that there's been buy-in from the carers and the family at home as well. The great thing we found also is that the equipment was suitable for children with all different postural deviations. It's not like we came across a child that had too much tone or too little tone, or the posture was too much in whatever way. We've been able to use it and adapt it for all of the children. Manco, I think Kayla shared, was probably needed the slowest progress, but that's also a learning point for us as well, that we can grade the equipment and grade the positioning. So yeah, that was a good experience for us. So data capturing from the beginning, we took a lot of photos and we kept a lot of information. We had a whole survey. We implemented it a few weeks before the school holidays, and then we gave the carers actually like a survey of when did they use it, how often did the children use it, and it really came back so positive. So yeah, just being able to keep that data and to be able to capture what's happening, because the changes were really fast and we really noticed a lot of good improvements, especially with Tulu and his constipation. That really was a very quick change, with just being positioned in a device which would help him to relax, everything relaxed, which really was a massive success for him, and for his mom as well. So yeah, so that was really great. I think we realized that as therapists, that we've also had seating training and done quite a lot of wheelchair seating. It gave us a knowledge base to work from. So the theory of using the device, although I think everybody can, I mean, our carers, they're not at all clinically trained, they can learn it. But I think it helped for us just to be able to apply quite easily and quite quickly the equipment with different children. So yeah, that was great. That the learning cascade can be done online. The Sarahs and Sharmini and just our meetings that we've had and the training that we've done with Sarah, initially the theory, but also the practical, zooming in and having the camera there just to be able to problem solve together. It's worked online. So the distance has not really posed any problems. We've been able to overcome it through, just using internet. So that's been great. And I think, the product, it calls into that concept of it's not just about the product, because straight away people are buying in, straight away people are wanting to use it, straight away people are understanding how to use it. So yeah, it really, as soon as you start using it and you can see the benefit, it's been great. So yeah, it kind of sells itself when you start to use it. So I think that's our main learning points as an organization from Timion and from this pilot that we've been doing, from our clinical implementation of this. So yeah, I'll hand over to Sarah now for the learning points for Simple Stuff Works by DDO.
Thanks, Hannah. So it was a partnership and we were learning together, and some of my points will slightly overlap with Hannah's, and I'm talking about the learning from Simple Stuff Works by DDO's side. So we knew we needed to work in partnership, and a partner organization is essential to this process. It's a shared process for it to be successful. And that partnership can have a local focus or a regional focus, depending on the organization involved. As Hannah said, it was great for us. This was a pilot and there were multiple layers to the pilot. So we were building on an organization with existing capacity and skill base. And we were basically adding another layer. Remote support, as Hannah says, works. and we could really get a feeling of working together effectively in real time, which I think is just so valuable, and the distance did not become a barrier. We worked together back and forth discussing the product mix. The product itself is made of, it's a configurable product with a number of pieces, and you mix and match to meet the needs of the child. And what we had assumed would be our initial starting point as your minimum base configuration, we adjusted that based on feedback and working together. In terms of this ecosystem, we're looking at developing a network. And for this to be successful, it's all about empowering that network. And there are multiple levels of empowerment. And I think it's really come across as we've heard from Timion in their presentation. And networks and ecosystems are multifaceted, and they take time. And just as we were talking about, sometimes we've got to take our time working with the children or adults that we meet. In terms of the collaboration and building a network, you can't force it. It's got to evolve. And much as we want everything to be in place as soon as possible, you will equally have to allow time for that to develop. We're talking to you partway through an ongoing learning process. So step one, as we've said, we've successfully applied this approach in a new context. But this is the beginning, not the end of the process. Moving forward, we're looking at how this can roll out and how it can grow locally and regionally. And we're not saying that we've got all the answers yet, but we're collectively very determined to find them because it is just so valuable. So with that, if we just move to the next slide, we really like to say thank you to all of you for your time, for joining us today. And we have got our contact details here. We also have some references that can be shared after the presentation that you may be interested in. But we did want to allow some time for questions, and I know some questions have been coming into the chat. So I think we'll check in with Kritika. We as a team, a Timion Simple Stuff Works by DDO team, are ready to take your questions and feed them between us all. And I just wanted to check, Kritika, if you would like to facilitate the questions, or what you feel is the best way, or you would like us to go through one by one.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm happy to read the questions for your team. So I'm just gonna go ahead and read them. Thank you, first of all, for an excellent presentation. And this is so exciting to have this great collaboration going on. We can't wait to see more results and more great work from this collaboration. Thank you again for your time. So we have from Dr. Amitabh Dwivedi. I'm an occupational therapist working as professor and dean in India. I think these position devices are specifically designed for particular children. So commercial production is very tough. My question is, how are you managing this issue?
Would you like me to answer that one? So the design of Simple Stuff Works and Simple Stuff Works by DDO it's a modular system, so it's infinitely adjustable. So rather than having any sort of custom contour or anything like that, it's very simple parts, very simple but consistent parts that are used and configured for each child. And there was another question with regards from Sue with regards to side lying. Yes, you can configure side lying as well, so that children do have a variety of positions. So hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you. So that answers Sue Fry's question. The next one is Christopher Wangel. Gail. Thank you for stressing that a combination of daylight and nighttime equipment is extremely important in order to retain the overall benefits of assistive devices. Thank you for that comment. Next question, Talia Mason. Thanks for the wonderful case studies. Does Timion have plans to manufacture similar equipment to make it more accessible in South Africa? And is handover to caregivers easy enough that they could use what they have at home to apply the same principles without equipment?
Probably that's a multifaceted answer, but Hannah, did you want to start?
Hi, yeah, so I think, like we shared, a lot of this was a pilot of bringing a new product to South Africa and how it could work within our cultural context. So that was the first part of the pilot. And yeah, the hope is to look in the future as to how we can make this accessible within the South African context. We're in the process of now looking at those stages with regards to bringing the product into the country and then being able to distribute and looking at training. So for sure, it's something we're very excited about and we're in the process of it, but that would be the follow-up part of the pilot is then the implementation on a wider population within South Africa. Does anybody else want to add anything into that?
Sharmini, did you want to add anything?
I would like to add that these products are based on Simple Stuff Works, which has been tried and tested. So we are conscious of, maintaining quality and consistency of the products so that it'll help in remote support. So at the moment, we are producing these products centrally, but in time to come, as we mentioned, everything will depend on the context as well. So at the moment, we have, sourced the products that, or the materials that we wanted in a central location. So we are conscious of our quality. So, it might happen in the long run. For now, it's centrally produced. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharmini. So the next question, Dr. Fatima Nivaz. Is there any time duration, like how long should this used in study and material of lying stuff?
If I answer that one, with regards to each individual child, the length of time that you would spend in different positions is going to change for different children. So I think it was Manco that we were very, very careful because he had extensive chest rotation. We knew that we needed to be thinking about not too much derotation because it was providing too big a stretch for him and was uncomfortable. And also that we needed to take real care to make sure that we were watching for signs that he had had enough. So it will change for different children. Obviously, the earlier you start, the less distortion you're trying to either accommodate or correct, and the less ambitious your positioning strategy needs to be. So if we are starting very early with fundamentally symmetrical children, then we can be looking at very long periods of time without it being, too challenging. So I think it's about, as we said, it's about really taking our time. And my experience is that the biggest mistakes are made when we ask too much, too quickly, with too little support for everybody that's involved. And that's when people just say, I'm not using it anymore. So it's just going very, very slowly and it's difficult sometimes trying to rein in your enthusiasm and your ambition. It's like you just have to go at the speed of the children and adults.
Thank you, Sarah. Next question from Jerome Lovided. What are the materials used for the seating? Are these EVA type of products?
I can take that question. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's based on Simple Stuff Works. It's all designed for comfort and function. At the moment, there is no EVA used in these products, but it's all based on, if you are familiar with Simple Stuff Works, they are similar. The material that is used, no EVA at all. And nothing with latex as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharmini. So that's the end of all the questions in the chat. Does anybody have any other questions? You can please unmute yourself and ask our presenters now. Any questions from the group? Okay. Do you have anything else to say, Sarah?
If you want, we can just bring up the presentation and show some of the references. If
Sure.
anyone, I know we're going to finish in a moment. If anybody thinks of a last minute question, that's fine. Just interrupt. Otherwise, we've just really enjoyed the opportunity to come and talk to you today.
Would you like me to talk these through, Sarah?
Yes, yeah, go ahead. Thanks, Sarah.
No problem at all. So these references were the ones that I used on the 13th of October, and I talked through each of them in a little bit more detail. The first one is looking at the biomechanics and prevention of body shape distortion. That was written by myself and John Goldsmith. And we were looking at developing a model that can be used to help people to predict from the habitual lying posture the way that a person's body will respond over time. We've got Jackie Casey's work there looking, because obviously, and again, from the case studies, this isn't just about body shape. This is about supporting, minimizing pain and distress. That, you know, kind of, and pain is something that we are very, very aware of, and is kind of goes hand in hand with body shape distortion. Jane Hamer's work looks at caregivers' experiences of implementing nighttime positioning is extremely, it's just fascinating. And there is a podcast a little bit further down called It's a Complex Night that you can listen to if you haven't got time to read her full dissertation. Obviously, Sharon Sutherland's work around seating, Tamara Kittleson's work, Eleanor's project implementing this sort of work with years of experience, which is fabulous. And then there was some stuff around measurement of body symmetry and assessment. And these relate, these last few relate more a little to the presentation on the 13th of October. But there's lots and lots of information online. And one of the things that I didn't mention was that as part of Simple Stuff Works' commitment to just to this whole field, really, if you go to our YouTube channel, all of our training has been available online for many, many years. So it's not hiding behind firewalls or anything like that. The information is all there, and I please encourage you to get in touch with myself, with Sarah Frost, with Sharmini, and with Timion to if this is something that you would like to explore further. I think that was everything.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Bob Appleyard in the chat has Bob, you've put transport with a question mark. Ah, and Sarah's responded. It's very transportable. Yeah, you can put it in a rucksack on your back, a small rucksack. Oh,
sorry, Bob. I don't think we can't hear you properly. The audio is not coming through well, so I'm just going to mute you, and then you can please type in the question in the chat, and you're very welcome to contact our colleagues after the webinar. Thank you so much again for your patience and for this excellent presentation, which we all really enjoyed. Yeah, I can't thank you enough. Is there anything else you would like to say before we close? Okay.
Just a huge thank you for the opportunity. All 6 of us are really thrilled to have been able to share the work that we've been doing. It's been years in the making and condensed into 45 minutes of fabulousness. But thank you ever so much for having us.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks. I'm going to close the meeting now. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Happy weekend.